Trump's anti-immigration rhetoric has been a key part of his political movement, especially when it comes to Mexico and the southern border.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
They want open borders. They don't want this. They want criminals to come in. They want human traffickers.
These are bad. These are animals.
Trump's language has always been racist and misguided, but I want to clarify, Mexico does have a serious violence issue. For the 6th year running, Mexico surpassed a record 30,000 murders in 2023. And according to Mexican authorities, more than 200,000 people have been killed by guns in the country since 2010. But that's not the full story. U.S. data shows that roughly 70% of the guns recovered by Mexican authorities can be traced back to purchases in the United States that are smuggled across the border. That robust black market due in large part to the fact that there's only one gun store in all of Mexico. One in the whole country, and it's on a military base. The country is issuing fewer than 50 gun permits a year. Now, Mexico is taking an aggressive action to stop the flow of guns from the United States, suing U.S. gun makers for $10 billion, accusing them of reckless business practices that supply a, quote, torrent of illegal firearms to violent drug cartels. This bombshell suit recently greenlit by a U.S. appeals court, and it could have some big implications, not only for Mexico, but for gun laws here in the United States. Joining me now to discuss is Jonathan Lowy, founder and president of Global Action on Gun Violence. He is the U.S.-based attorney representing Mexico in this lawsuit. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Jonathan, this was so key. This was so key because the narrative in the United States, certainly on the right, is always, oh, the United States is being flooded by people. And yet, the reality is our guns are flooding and damaging Mexico. Just talk a little bit about the fact that American guns and the negative impact that they have had on stability, economics, and human rights issues in Mexico.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's very difficult for criminals to get guns in Mexico, so they have traffickers come to the U.S. and buy multiple assault weapons. The dealers obviously should know that these are traffickers, and they pour across the border about 500,000 or more guns every year. And that makes Mexico about the third highest gun death rate in the world. And it also drives the migration coming across the border to the U.S., and it also fuels the fentanyl trafficking. Kill so many in the U.S. So it's a U.S. problem and a Mexican problem as a result of U.S. gun industry practices.
And I want to highlight that because, as you said, with the number of guns that the United States is sending to Mexico, they're being smuggled into Mexico, that is a large catalyst for what is happening at the border. If the United States did a better job of controlling our gun smuggling, we wouldn't have these kinds of border issues. I want to play this quote here, or share this quote here on the screen. It's from the Gun Trade Group VP, right? So basically what they're arguing here, Larry Keane says he's the senior vice president and general counsel of the National Shooting Sports Foundation. He defended the gun manufacturers. He said, quote, Mexico should spend its time enforcing its own laws and bring Mexican criminals to justice in Mexican courtrooms instead of scapegoating the firearm industry. Jonathan, isn't the Mexican government suing America to handle our own gun problem an example of them trying to handle their business, and that he's really just coming up with excuses for the lack of control and responsibility of gun manufacturers in our country?
That's exactly right. And of course, he's not defending the industry. He's just pointing the finger somewhere else. And the fact is, if cartels were not armed with military weapons to get from U.S. trafficking, it would be much, much easier to stop them. And that would reduce violence and crime on both sides of the border.
What we're looking at right now is there's a list of gun companies that are being sued right now. We've got Beretta firearms and manufacturing, Colt manufacturing, Glock, Smith & Wesson, et cetera, et cetera. Where is the current state of this case, and what would a successful result be for you and your organization and for the Mexican government?
Well, we just won a big victory in the First Circuit Court of Appeals that held that Mexico's case could go forward. The defendants are trying to seek review, are going to seek review to the Supreme Court. Personally, don't think Supreme Court's going to take this case, and I think we're going to be back down in the trial court proving this case. And if we're successful, and I think we will be, that will have courts make sure that the manufacturers and dealers sell guns in a responsible, safe way, which reduce gun trafficking. And it would also bring money, some of the profits that the industry has made, to the government of Mexico so they can protect their people and build their country.
Jonathan Lowy, thank you so much for the work you're doing. I think this is an incredibly important story. We're definitely going to follow up.